Real estate agents, what is a brand on social media really, and how do you build one to benefit your business? Hi, guys. If you don't know me, my name is Jarvis, and I run Jarvis Media Consolidated, a marketing company that helps real estate agents create their content, post content to their platforms, and we guarantee results. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and click the link down below, and we can schedule a call to chat a little bit about that. But if we're talking about building a brand on social media, I hear this question a lot, which is basically, how do I build my brand on social media? Like, I see folks who build an amazing brand. I see the benefits of that. How do I myself do that? And so I want to take this video to talk about that. So really quickly, let me jump over to my iPad here. So when we talk about building a brand on social media here, the first thing that we need to talk about is audience, right? Because yeah, you can build a brand, you can make a logo, you can, figure out your colors and all of that stuff. That doesn't really matter as much. But at the end of the day, having an audience is what a lot of people mean by having a brand. Basically you establish an entity that people want to, listen to. They want to know when you're posting. They want to buy your products quicker or your service quicker because it's associated with you. The real estate example that comes to mind here is Sirhan, right? Like he has this brand from TV shows and all this other stuff, and he launches his own brokerage, and it's obviously wildly successful because he has that strong brand awareness. Another great example is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, actually, who had his tequila brand Terramana, which is a multi-billion-dollar evaluation of their company. And let me tell you right now, it's not because they found some secret recipe for tequila. It's because The Rock is the brand association. So you get free marketing, you get the free brand awareness. I mean, instantly you have credibility and you can go out to mass market, which is something that a lot of companies take a lot of time and a lot of money struggling with. So there's huge benefit to having a brand, and that all starts with your audience. So we know we need to build an audience in order to have a successful brand. So then the next question becomes, how do we do that? Well, we do that through viewable content. And really quick note here, when I say viewable content, I don't mean that like, oh, we have stuff that people can actually physically view. No, I mean that like your content needs to be a sliver of value, a sliver of, a reason for people to want to watch, watch the next post or to come back around. When we talk about brands, a really great example of an industry that has to make a brand instantly is the movie industry. And by the way, there's an amazing book from Brendan, can't remember his last name, but this book's called 1 Million Follows, 1 Million Followers, I think. It's an amazing book. I'll figure out his last name later on. But basically, he talks about how he used to work in the movie industry, and they'd have to basically create a brand from nothing in about a year, and you have to get a massive show-up rate, make millions of dollars, otherwise the movie's a flop. So it's a really interesting call there, but basically it's, how do you make a brand out of thin air and very quickly and very effectively? And so they do that through, having content that people want to see. Their whole marketing premise for a movie is, hey, this thing is coming out, like you don't want to miss this thing, and they give you little slivers of it through trailers and all that kind of stuff and publicity and all that. But it starts with just notability, right? People need to know you, and this is kind of where like an interesting idea of like the know, like, and trust comes from, which is that people need to know you in order to like you, and they need to trust you in order to give you their time, to trust you with their time to watch your content or to read your content or whatever kind of content you're creating there. So it's another version of how, people say in sales, somebody needs to know you, like you, and trust you to buy from you. Well, the same thing goes for building an audience and making content, right? Because it's not that your content doesn't have any value. It's that you might be putting out content that has no value relative to what they could find on the same feed, right? The way to think about content creation, at least from the 5 years that I've been working on it with real estate agents, is that your content might have great information, it might be great, but it might be packaged in a way where it doesn't get to the information fast enough, it doesn't prove credibility quick enough for the audience. Otherwise, for them not to just scroll past and go and watch the next video. Because, an amazing piece of content nowadays is just a scroll away. Like, these algorithms are insanely good at creating content and putting it in front of people. So, there's never a shortage of content that's really entertaining. So your content, if you want to build a brand, needs to be that much more effective. Now that we kind of understand the basics here, basically we know we need to get people to know, like, and trust us through our content. And just another quick note, I guess, actually on the viewable content stuff is, obviously, and this is very just, high level here, but obviously good. It needs to be really good content, of course. We'll talk about a little bit more about what that means in a second. But then also, you really need to have a good amount of volume. Because listen, even an amazing post, doesn't get seen by nearly enough folks to really build credibility. You can't just make one amazing post and like, oh, that's an amazing brand. It's like, no, you have to show up, consistently to a degree to associate people with your content and your brand so that they know, oh, every time Joe Realtor goes out and posts a piece of content, it's something amazing and I really want to watch. I don't want to miss it. Therefore, I'm going to follow him, I'm going to subscribe to his emails, all of that good stuff. So then now we know that kind of the basics of making content that gives you the a reason to even build a brand, people a reason to follow you really. Then we want to talk about who to target and their interests. So this is the difference between just having 1 million followers and having 10 followers, right? It's not really the number, right? The number of followers doesn't matter. It really, to make a really quick equation out of this, if we're talking about your audience and building a strong audience, it would be number of followers or, audience members, whatever we want to call that, subscribers, whatever, let's do / subscribers, times let's say the how to phrase this, basically just the strength of that audience, the willingness, the loyalty of that audience, basically, is kind of a way to say it. I'm sure there's a better way, but the loyalty of that audience, towards the subject matter that you're talking about, the interest level, right, the depth that they are willing to go to watch your content, that equals your brand power. And so, it's not just about numbers, because listen, if you have a billion followers and zero loyalty, what's 1 billion times zero? It's zero. So that's why, we need to actually make sure that loyalty is as much a part of it as our followers. And honestly, it's a more important equation, because would you rather have 10 people who are super, super loyal or 1 million people who are not loyal at all? At least those 10 loyal people could, help you out and build your brand in a lot of different ways. So, we need to understand who we want to target and their interests in order to make content that they will know, like, and trust, in order for them to want to become audience members to build our social media brand, or our brand really anywhere, but in the digital marketing landscape as we're talking about it. So at the end of the day, we need to know all these different steps. And to give you something tactical to come away with, one of the best ways to figure out what the interests are is not about creating... It's really not about getting too in your head, because, and this is something that I actually struggle with personally, when I speak to a lot of real estate agents as a marketer, as a digital marketer, I always have to check myself, because I can easily get too into the weeds, too into the nerdy stuff, and not really focus on the bottom line that applies to the real estate agent. I'm a nerd about this stuff. If I jump on a call, I might talk, here's the stuff about the algorithm, here's the stuff about this, here's this platform versus this platform, and like a couple times an agent might be like, okay, but how does that even help me? And that's the takeaway. You have to check yourself, and I do it all the time, to be like, okay, wait a minute, I forgot that I'm not just here to provide a level of value, objective value or information. I'm here to create value that's relative to their interests. Otherwise, it doesn't matter to them. If I'm the best polo player in the world and I'm hanging out with like a football player, the football player might be like, oh, that's cool, but I don't really give an SHIT about polo. So it all is relative to what their interests are, relative to, of course, who you're trying to target here. Whoops, I accidentally erased it. So if we're making content, one of the best ways to do this, if you're like, hey, I don't really know how to start, like, how do I start understanding what's valuable or what's not valuable? Well, you have to really be clear about who you're outlining. You might just be like, hey, I just want to like get in front of home buyers and sellers in my market. And that's totally okay. That could be your audience. Nothing wrong with that. Some people might want to niche down. Some people might want to be like, oh, I have a lot of good track record. I've helped a lot of people who are like, let's say, like divorced women who are looking to, buy a home. Nothing wrong with that. By the way, when you're choosing your audience here, the benefit of going niche is that they are harder to target, but marketing is all about telling people their story to them, essentially. There's a quote that I'm butchering, but basically, it's that marketing is essentially the art of relaying people's problems to them. Like if I'm going out to a realtor and I'm like, hey, real estate agent, I want to help you with your social media. I do this stuff with the algorithm, and I make sure these metrics are at this point, and I make sure this number is at that point. You might be like, okay, like that sounds cool, but I'm not incentivized to learn more. But if I say, hey, realtors, we're going to get you guaranteed followers and guaranteed viewers and guaranteed leads every single month while saving you time on your content, then just like, oh, okay, well, I understand the value for that as a realtor because these are the things I'm interested in. So, if you're targeting a more narrow audience, the benefit of that is that you can get more granular in your marketing. And then when you get to like the sales conversation level, it tends to be a little bit more easy, right? You have more common ground to work with because you've worked with that specific person and that specific need before. Whereas, the benefit of going wider is that, you're going to get more people at the top of the funnel, more people who are like, oh yeah, I'm a home buyer or seller in Connecticut. Like, that applies to me. But then you might get down to the more granular and they're like, oh, but here are my constraints here. Like, I also need a house that has a pool and I also have this stuff and I don't have great credit and like all that stuff. And those can be pain points in like the sales cycle later on that might have, people not end up working with you as a real estate agent. So, all this just goes to say that you have a lot of options here with picking your audience, but you need to know who your audience is in order to understand their interests, right? Because if we understand their interests, then we can start making content for them and, more importantly, making a lot of content and testing it. And this is what's the kind of the big takeaway is once you understand your audience, then you need to start testing. And you can only testing, or I should say your testing is as valuable as it is large in number. There's a better way to say that. I'm terrible at my phraseology today. But essentially, the more volume to your testing, the better your results will be, the more reliable. The bigger the sample size, the better the study, right? That basically is what we're saying here. So, if we're testing, we want to have a lot of volume. It's not like we posted 3 posts. One post was about buying, one post was about selling, one post was about like credit. The credit one got more interest. So then we're like, oh, now all of our content is about credit. No, we want to make 5 posts about each of those subjects over the next few months, let's say. And then we can start to average those numbers together and realize, oh, okay, it's not that credit is the most important subject. It's really just the fact that I sent that out on a Thursday and for whatever reason, these people were more interested in my stuff on Thursday. There's a lot of data sets here, so we need to make sure what we're testing is accurate. So once we start testing these content topics based off of the audience whose interests that we understand fundamentally, then we'll know what kind of content is resonating with them. Then we can double down on that content. In this case, let's say credit. Understand, hey, here's the different ways to improve your credit. Here's if you have really good credit, what you qualify for. Here's to how to recover bad credit. Here are 5 steps to make your credit better in the next month. All of these different content topics that we can then take and run and create content with, build a stronger audience. And then again, we're going through the cycle. Then we've expressed their interests based off the person we're trying to target. We create viewable content and we know it's viewable because every month it gets better because we're testing it and we're seeing what's working and making improvements and focusing, doubling down on whatever is working to build that audience around our brand on social media. So guys, this is super high level, but I hope this helps just kind of get you an idea about how you start to build and grow a brand on social media. It definitely is a time-consuming thing, but of course, there are massive benefits if you can really be dedicated. Again, Ryan Serhant is an amazing example of that. So guys, let me know if you have any questions down below. I'd happy to make a video about it, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.